We will just start in a minute as people are still joining in, guys. And all right, class, let's move on with our last session on day 4. And let's talk about risk again, continuing with our last discussion. So in the morning, rather in our last class in the morning, what we talked about was types of risk, and we said credit risk is regulatory as well as operational. Or what is regulatory risk as such? Regulatory risk is analyzing the risk portfolio at the, or rather analyzing risk at the portfolio level rather than at the individual level. And that is what is important as part of regulatory risk assessment. Yeah. So operational credit risk is analysis of at the individual level, and as rightly said, by us in the morning, that it is very important to first analyze your risk at the portfolio level, and if that is the problem, only then do you analyze it at the individual level. The frequency may differ, weekly, monthly, quarterly, half yearly, but definitely not annually. Yeah? A prudent approach would be to look at it at the operational level, or rather at the portfolio level, and then look at it at the individual level. Okay. So the process is you assess the hazards. You first of all identify what the issues are, or what the showstoppers are, or what are the hazards. You assess them in terms of risk and return balances that you will check, take appropriate decisions, implement KPIs or controls accordingly, and you monitor them whether the decisions that you've taken or the variables that you've taken, are they helping you work in the right direction or not? If not, review. If great, it is actually a status quo practice. Okay, so two things are important, people, when you look at the operational risk management portfolio. One is the probability of the risk, and the other one is the severity of the risk. And both these are important elements to consider when you look at the risk management framework. Now, any idea based on what you see, what do you mean by probability of risk? What is the probability?
Chances of the event occurring.
Chance of the event occurring. So probability is absolutely the chance, and we would like to determine what is the chance of that occurrence. If it occurs, if there is a chance, and if that chance is more likely, then it is obviously worthy to investigate or examine it, or at least acknowledge it. And if there is less chance of it occurring, then obviously there is a, when there is a problem, and therefore it's not as big an issue that you would think it would be. And what does severity mean? Severity,
Level of damage.
level of damage. Any others? What is the outcome or impact of that event which is occurring? If that impact is going to be severe, then obviously it's going to have, on the grading scale of severe, it is extremely severe, for a better word. Then yes, of course, it needs to be considered. But if it's not, then it does not need to be considered as far as your, risk portfolio and resources is concerned. So again, reinforcing the fact, if it is a risk, why do we need probability and severity? Why can't we just get rid of or eliminate all the risks and related risks associated with it? The answer is, we are here in business. We are not a not-for-profit center. Profit is the main goal of businesses. So therefore, we need to make sure that our profits are taking into consideration a prudent, robust risk portfolio. Yeah, and that is based on the probability and severity of assessment of risk. So the first thing that we need to do or understand is whether we have a risk management policy, number one. Number two, more important than that, do we have a risk assessment framework? And for a risk assessment framework, we must have a risk assessment code. Any idea what this risk assessment code will be made up of? Risk assessment code.
Statement of process defining how to do risk assessment.
Which is the policy. So what would these codes be made up of? How would you know that this is this code is this and A1 or 2 or 3? How would you, should I say, define those codes?
Is it a matrix between severity and probability of
It is, and that is the matrix of severity and probability, which is going to define the risk assessment code, right, Kuldeep? And this is what the matrix typically looks like. So you can have your scales can vary, but typically probability is a 5-point scale, starting from to a very unlikely to say very likely. And your catastrophic is usually a 4-point scale, staying no severity to catastrophic. And all countries, when we were going through the coronavirus episode, they said we are in green status or dark green status, light green status, orange status, and then amber or whatever, red status. And whenever any country was in the red status, it had complete cutoff of ties with the other world. Orange alert would mean that it could go into red. So those were the codes that were used uniformly, for assessing a certain pandemic. In this particular case, this is the code that we're going to use to assess the risk assessment framework made up of probability and severity. Probability, frequent, likely, occasional, seldom, unlikely. Severity, catastrophic, critical, moderate, and negligible. Okay, and things are like low, medium, high, and extremely high. So extremely high is obviously anything which is frequent or likely, and the severity is catastrophic or critical. Probability is occasional, but catastrophic or critical, and unlikely is the other way around. So anything which is moderate or negligible and unlikely is actually low as far as your risk assessment is concerned. Why should you prioritize your risk, or why should a risk assessment matrix be required? Why is it required? Why do you think it's essential?
Prioritization.
Why should you prioritize?
Depending on the severity, you can attend to the risks.
And how would you attend to the risks?
Whichever, depending on how, depending on the level of the risk, you can address them or
And to address them, what do we?
To
Yeah,
take some
right,
preventive
Shirley.
steps.
We
Yeah,
can
and to
determine whether detection is important or prevention is important, whether it's need to be real time or offline. So all those things can be determined based on this.
and to do all of this, what do you need?
Data.
No, we don't need data. We need something more important than data. This is data, by the way. We don't need data to do this. We need money, we need resources, we need people, we need technology, we need skills. And we can't be doing this left, right, and center because it comes with a cost. So to prioritize our resources, we need to do risk assessment matrix. Whatever is seldom and unlikely or moderate and negligible will not even be considered for investigation because you don't have the resources. Some organizations might say whatever is low, not bothered. But whatever is extremely high and therefore high will not be overlooked at. We will address them. And this does it mean that once you do a risk assessment framework, it is there for life, or is it dynamic?
It's a dynamic.
It's a dynamic. And so what is the frequency of this dynamism? How frequently should you be doing your risk assessment matrix?
Bi-weekly?
Bi-weekly, that is twice a week, Braj. Wow, that's a lot.
Quarterly.
Quarterly, okay.
depending on the severity of the risk, the frequency could be.
Yeah, in a current situation scenario, how do you think it should be?
I would say yearly.
Annually? Yes, this is done annually because unless it is regulatory, the plans don't change, or unless something has happened which is out of the blue, then things change, but unlikely. And hence a risk assessment matrix or prioritization of risk earlier used to be about 3 to 4 years also, is now about 1 to 2 years now. So the whole exercise also takes time because it is a pan organization exercise, then to allocate resources, then to track them, then to work on it. Requires monitoring, also requires a lot of effort, and hence you do this on an annual basis with budgets getting sanctioned for it, and you review it on an annual level as part of your business plans or strategy planning exercises that you do. Okay, so obviously it helps you prioritize. Yes, Nehil.
Sir, I wanted to know if this matrix can be used when someone is planning for a new business, or can this only be used in terms of finance and credit?
No, this is post facto. Once you established your business and your business has enrolled, planning you to your business just for the first very time. Then you have risk assessment, or risk controls that you would have assessed, or financial risks or whatever other risks of the plan. So this is usually not at that time, but it is after the business has been launched and you want to really drill down into what kinds of risks will you assess and therefore work on.
Okay.
Yeah, so the business is already launched or established, not to be launched. To be launched is a different one, and you have to talk about risks to the plan.
Yeah. Got it.
Okay. Now, how can a bank's customer be actually stressed and therefore be monitored or therefore be coming into the radar for you to be able to look at it, whether you want such a customer segment or you don't want such a customer segment? One is utilization of over card limit. What does that mean? Which means there are a lot of customers, as general habits, are always taking overdrafts on their cards over and above their sanction limits. Number one. Number two, they are also looking at overspending and therefore paying finance charges or not paying their dues on time, and that is your delayed clearance of dues. So either you're not paying your EMIs or your credit cards. There are a lot of people who will just pay the minimum balance and will be moving ahead to avoid the late finance charges, but they pay interest on the unpaid amounts, and therefore they will be at risk from that. That portfolio is at risk, though you're making money from this portfolio, and hence a bank's customer could be stressed based on utilization of the card limits and delayed clearance of dues. If you do this regularly, banks should be able to know, preempt, that this is a segment which is vulnerable and I will track it because that is impacting the health of my organization, because it's impacting the health of my customer base that I'm going to look into. And I can therefore say that my customer segment is an unhealthy segment and not a segment that I can rely on. Yeah. So on utilization of overcard limit and delayed clearance of dues are two strong variables to determine the health of the customer, the credit health of the customer. Customer management becomes important, and you need to manage this customer. We've looked at this earlier also. During acquisition, when you're onboarding and acquiring, during managing your customer, and there is the third one, which is collection and recovery agent. So we have three broad areas where analytics works in the area of risk: the acquisition, the management of the customer, and collection and recovery plans that you will do. So at the acquisition stage, you want to decide whether to approve this customer list or not approve this customer. Do we sanction them the credit limit or the loan amount as desired, or do we underwrite it with a lower amount and things of that kind? So that's how you onboard a customer. Okay. The analytics that you have on board, or the different analytics that you will work with to take that decision, will be first of all, the application, and the information on the application is the starting point. Obviously, you will review this in great details to be able to decide whether you're going to approve or you're going to reject the application. Your approval decision is then going to be based on, if the applicant is found worthy and without any risks, then obviously you're going to go ahead and you will decide. Sometimes you will underwrite it also with regards to the credit card. If they want a platinum, but you'll give them a silver. If they want a loan amount of $100, for example, you'll give them a loan of $90 only. So this is the decision-making process based on the data that you will have, the analytics that you will do for credit risk, to decide what all will you be working on as far as the acquisition is concerned of the customer. And when we say that the acquisition needs to be corrected, in the morning somebody said that the risk needs to be looked at the onboarding stage, and therefore this is how you're going to assess the risk at the acquisition stage or the onboarding stage. When you build your model for the data availability, you will have, there is a problem. You want to build your model because some of the data will be with the approved population and other will be from your rejected population, and you need to take both these into account in terms of their behavior, in terms of, what went wrong, why did you approve and why did you not approve, to put these through into your model. So when you are accepting or rejecting, you need to, at the acquisition stage, what you will do is you will do test and learn. So what is test and learn? Test and learn is basically, you have enough data, you look at the behavior, track the behavior, and then you make or take a decision whether you want to onboard or whether you want to accept or reject this particular application. Downstream credit bureau data basically means you will reject. If there has been rejects elsewhere, you're going to use that data, or whatever past data, for example, you have, you're going to use that data in your decision making. Parceling and augmentation is you build a model on earlier approvals, and based on that, you will extrapolate those results onto your decisions to be able to accept, reject the application. Okay, so test and learn. Test and learn usually is also a phenomena where you demonstrate that you are a data-driven organization and you have enough data about the customer for you to take a decision in-house. Bureau data, nowadays, do we have the credit bureau data available for us? And that becomes a wonderful source of information for us to take a decision. Many a times we have credit bureau information, and this credit bureau information that we have, nowadays, for example, people are, credit bureau is saying if there's a new person coming to the city, and they have not got any bank account or anything in that particular city, then how can we get credit bureau data? People say that it's based on 3 months behavior also. If you've taken a telephone line connection, electricity bill, and payment of those on time will also build your credit score. In some countries, what they say is, no, you must have a bank account and you must have about 6 months of behavior for you to be eligible onto the credit bureau data. Yeah. But all of us have a credit rating, which banks do get access to, and you can get access to it also. And that is reviewed or looked at by the bank before they decide on giving you anything as a customer. Okay. Test and learn, downstream bureau, and parceling and augmentation. So how do you decide whether your model is performing well or not in the long run? And you have three variables there, which is discriminatory power of the model, calibration, and stability of the model. Now, what do we understand by discriminatory power of the model? What is our objective? What is our objective, people?
To differentiate between the defaulters and the non-defaulters.
Correct. So our objective is what? To above this, our objective is to, why do we need to do that? To be able to
For a quality lending.
Yeah, and why do we need that? To be able to
Prevent losses.
a better word to loss, we are a fraud class, no? So to prevent
Risk.
fraud.
To avoid risk.
Yeah. So to prevent fraud and risks. To minimize or mitigate risks and prevent frauds. That is why we need to know this information. And if the model is able to provide this information between defaulters and non-defaulters, then yes, the model has the discriminatory power to be able to do so in a very, smooth, seamless manner. Accuracy. Now, accuracy is also very, very important. Now, under accuracy, I think we've talked about it, that your data needs to be accurate. And for measuring accuracy, we say that it should be reliable and it should be valid. What does the word reliability mean? Data is reliable. What does that mean or indicate?
Correctness of data.
Correctness of data, absolutely right. And that is error-freeness of the data. And what is valid? The data is valid. What do we mean by that?
To the point.
To the point, and therefore in our language, what we will say, it answers our objective to detect or mitigate fraud. Right? So that is what what we mean when we say that our data is accurate, and that accuracy is made up of reliability of data and validity of data. And lastly, stability. What does stability of the model mean?
For how long it can run correctly.
How long it can run correctly, how long is it going to withheld its information to be able to give you the objective of detecting between fraudulent and non-fraudulent transactions or customers. And if it's able to do that for a longer period of time, long term is at least a year, then it is said to be a stable model. But if it's not able to do so, and you got to, every time you introduce a new variable, whole things are going to be shaking up, then it's not going to be a stable model, even though it is a calibrated, and even though the model has discriminatory power. So discriminatory power, calibration, and stability. Reject inferences. Please, let's take a look at this. You have 4 segments of applicants that have come to you. Segment A, segment B, segment C, and segment D. Do you have demographic data on all of them? Yes, you do have demographic information on all of them. Do you have behavioral data? Yes, you have behavioral data for the first segment, but not there for the other 3 segments. Do you have behavioral data between 2017 and 2020 for the other segments? You only have for the B segment, not for C and D. Do you have any data from the Credit Bureau, of course, from prior to 2017? You have it for C. Does the target variable exist? Are you able to identify fraud or not fraud? You're not able to do that for all the other 3 segments. You're able to do that for the segment A. So what you do is, in this particular case, what they did, the treatment that they did for the segment A was everything was there. So they derived the target variable, which was anyways there. They had to not do anything else. It was there. But for the other 3, they derived the target variable to compare apples to apples. In the case of segment B and C, they use performance limit and performance period from existing customer management to determine whether the behavior is good or bad. And that's what so they looked at this information from whatever sources, current, previous, to be able to know whether the customer behavior is a good behavior or a bad behavior. And that's how they came up with the target variable to identify whether it's a fraud or a non-fraud portfolio, or a risk or a non-risk portfolio of customers. The D segment, you built an acquisition risk model using information with segment A, segment B, segment C to be able to come up with a target variable for segment D. And that is how you prepared it, how we came together, or how we put together rather a target variable for segment D. So now all the 4 segments have a target variable based on which you can take a decision. Yeah. So this is the question that we want to answer. What type of reject inferences was created for segment B, segment C, and segment D with the behavior that you can see? So you can take a photo, a print screen of this. If you want, you can take a print screen of what do we mean by test and learn, downstream, and parsing and augmentation. And the answer that we need to give is, for segment B, C, and D, did we use test and learn, downstream, or parsing and augmentation based on what the information is provided here? Okay, assume you've taken it. We are going to put you into a breakout room for about 10 minutes to quickly discuss this amongst your peers, and then we'll come back and discuss it as a class. Okay. So let's make 3 groups. Okay. 9. All right, fine. Okay. So in about 10 minutes, we'll come back into the main room and then we'll discuss it. You people have not joined the room, Kavita and Koshani.
No, sir, we
Room two.
discussed, then we, after discussion, we just joined.
Finished?
Yeah.
Okay, all right then. Fair enough. Okay. Just three is still going to take a couple more minutes, and then I'm going to go look at one.
Sure.
So Kavita, could you figure out like the numerical values in the data set that we have been provided, or should we ask her once that?
You are talking about the ones which do not have metadata, those.
Right.
Yeah, we should definitely ask her what we need to do. I mean, do we need to just leave as it is, or any
Yeah,
kind of conversion we need to do? I think that question we need to check.
yeah, exactly. Because if they do not have any meaning, like we don't know what one or zero or whatever represents, like how are we going to write the inferences? Doesn't make sense.
Yeah. What are others discussing for so long?
10 minutes they've given 10 minutes, no. So 10 minutes you have to just chillax.
But there's just one question.
Take some,
जैसा है भी नहीं.
take rest. Yeah, relax for some time. That's the only thing we can do.
Are you done with the project, guys?
No, not yet started. I don't even know what it is.
We have to start it yet. Been a very hectic week.
Why do you have so much body odor, Shirley?
Okay, everybody is back. Great. So let's tell us. Room 2 was very fast back. So let's hear it from you first this time. What do you think is there for segment B, A, B, C, D? Yes.
So for B and C, we believe that it is using the based on the bureau data. So it's using the behavior history basically, and using that to determine. Whereas for the case of D, it is using based on the third option, that is the parceling and augmentation. So it's trying to create based on other historical data and not specifically of that same customer.
Okay. So BC was what you said?
Using the credit bureau data.
Credit bureau data. Okay. And what about D?
D is using that augmentation based on the model.
Okay, which is this one, parseling and augmentation. Okay, what aspects do you think was relevant for D to be, augmented?
So here, if you see, there is no behavioral data available with the bank as well as the credit bureau, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So it is here mentioned that it is using basically model to, create to predict.
Look at this.
Okay, good. Yeah. Anyone else? Okay, room 1 and room 3. Any?
This is the last statement.
Sorry. Room 1 or room 3?
So now, Professor, for room 3, I think I would agree on what what Kavit explained. So for us also, for our group also, B and C was taking reference of downstream bureau data, and the D part is from parceling and augmentation.
So BC is? No, sorry, what did you
Downstream
say?
bureau
D.
data.
Okay,
How's
B
my
is
phone?
also
What the fuck?
parceling and augmentation, is it? B is also augmentation.
Yes.
And D is
D and
parsing and
C.
augmentation. Yeah.
Yeah, D is parceling and augmentation.
Augmentation. And B and C?
Is downstream bureau data. Based on that bureau data, they will
Downstream
decide.
bureau data. And
Yeah.
we talked about one more. What is A?
A is obviously you just explained that it's based on test and learn. So,
Okay. Why test and learn, Braj?
because I think we have all the data available, either it's a demographic data or behavioral data. So
Okay.
data is also available with bank, also it is available with the credit bureau. So we can take of both, right? So that's why it's going to be test and learn.
Okay. What about room 1?
So we have also identified the same. B and C will come under downstream and bureau data, and the D will come under parceling and augmentation.
Augmentation, right? And A will be test and learn for the reasons because everything that you did for D was taken from outside, and it is like an extrapolation of all understanding of B and C onto D. So D may or may not behave like this, but because segments B, C, and A are behaving, you're imposing that on D, and that is parceling and augmentation. Data with you or data with external bureau has been used in this particular case in segment B and C. Mostly the data has come from step 2 bureau data, and therefore that's absolutely right. That's downstream bureau data. And the first one is test and learn, because you've invested, you have the data, and you've been able to make a decision. Okay, very good. Okay, so moving on to the next aspect of it on risk analysis. Now that you want to analyze your model and you have to have some KPIs to assess whether you're on the right path or not, we have usually 5 metrics that we look at. One is the approval rate. The approval rate is the percentages of applications approved from what you have received. Rejection rate is the opposite of the approval rate, which is 100 minus or 1 minus approval rate. Okay, auto approval rate is the approval rate which the model approves, automatically. And that is the auto approval rate. It measures the percentages of applications approved by the model. You have an overriding rate, and there are 2 overriding rates. First of all, what is overriding rate? Are those cases where the model's decision is overridden manually. So if the model has rejected, you interjected and accepted it, or if the model has accepted, you've interjected and rejected it. So you have 2 kinds of overrides. High side override is when the model approves. High side is model approves and humans or staff rejects. And low side override is when the model rejects and human approves. Okay, the other way around basically. Underwriting matrix is basically if you had asked for $100, we only gave you 10 or 90, and therefore it's a 10% underwriting that we have done with regards to the applicant's request or applicant's requirement. So here, take a look at this data. You can take a photo shot also. The number of applications that you received were 10,000. Yes, Nehal?
So, sir, in case of override decision, if machine and human does not have different decisions, so which one should be taken into consideration?
No, if the machine has rejected and you've accepted, which means you've accepted, but you have to have a KPI to track and know, therefore, to interpret it. If those are high rates, obviously a model is not doing its job effectively. So the model has to be relooked, the variables have to be relooked, and that's what these KPIs are for, to assess whether your model or your risk analytics model is doing the job right or not. Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, we'll answer more of that when we look at this data and calculate a few metrics ourselves. So in this case, you have 10,000 applications, of which auto accepted by the model is 3,000, and therefore auto rejected by the model is 2,500. Total left for review manually is 10,000 minus 5,500, and that's 4,500. Accepted manually out of these were 2,400. The remaining are rejected manually, and and that's how the 4,500 is split. Manually removed from the auto accepts is about 300, and therefore remaining auto accepts is 3,000 minus 300, and that's 2,700. Manually removed is about 500, and that is 2,500 minus 500, and that's 2,000. Finally approved is 5,600, and the remaining is finally rejected, totaling of 10,000 applications received to be able to do so. Now, based on the data, you can again take a picture shot of this. We want you to calculate the approval rate, the rejection rate, the overriding rate, high side override, and low side override rates. And this, again, if you want, take a shot of this. What is approval rate? What is auto approval rate? What is overriding rates? And what is underwriting matrix? We're taking 5 of these, and these are the most common metrics that are used to calculate them and to determine the effectiveness of your risk analytics model. Okay. Clear about this, guys? You've taken a picture shot of this. Cool. So one more time onto your breakout rooms for about 15 minutes. We come back and then we see what you've calculated for the data that you have been given. Okay. All right, great. So I guess some groups were here early than the others, not a problem. But let's go room wise. Let's first try and talk about the approval and the rejection rate. So any one of the rooms, please, 1, 2, or 3. Approval and rejections rates. And I'm going to put this up again. Yeah. Yeah. Room 1, 2, or 3. Approval and rejection rates.
56 and 44%. Approval is 56 and rejection is 44.
Okay. And where did you get that number from? That's correct, though.
From the last 2 columns, like step 5. So
Okay. So step 5 is the
So
last
total
2 columns.
yeah,
And the
total
last 2 columns is, yeah. Okay, go ahead.
So total applicants were 10,000, right? Out of that, 5,600 were accepted and 4,400 were rejected. So
Correct.
simple math, like 56%.
Yes, absolutely. So 56%. So 5,600 out of 10,000 is 56%. And you can straight away do 100 minus 56 is 44. Or you can even do 4,400 on 10,000, give it the same number. So that's my accepted rate. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's my approved or accepted rates. And that's my rejected or refused rates, as we also call them. That's great. Now, what is my override rate? Or before override, let's talk about what is my high side override. Now, what is high side override? Is when the model approves, but humans reject. And a low side override when the model rejects and the humans approve. So not Brudge's group, but the other 2 groups. Can you tell me, any one of you, what is my override rate? I mean, not override rate. What is my high side override and low side override rate?
Sir, high side, sir, room 1. High side override, sir, model accepted is 3,000 and human rejected is 2,100.
So what is
And
the
the
high
low-
side rate, please?
High side is 3,000, sir.
No, the rate. What the model approves, but humans reject.
Yes. So model approved 3,000, sir. And human
Okay.
rejected is 2,100.
Where do you get 2,100 from? Rejected manually, yeah?
Yes.
That is out of what you want to reject, what you have to review anyways from the model. There's nothing that the model has done. These are leftovers. And from that, 2,100 has been rejected manually.
Yes.
So I'm afraid that will not be the right thing. Any other rooms?
Yes, sir.
High side override?
Yes, sir. High side override will be 10%. And
Okay,
low
and
side
how did you
override
get
will be,
that?
so it's step 3. We gone through step 3, wherein manually removed auto accept were 300, and the remaining autos accepted 2,700. So we summed it up and took a percentage like 300 out of 3,000. That comes to 10%.
So 300 divided by
3,000.
And that is
10%.
And that is your high side override. Okay. Good. What is my low side override?
20%.
Sorry?
20%, sir.
20%. And what is this thing? Okay, I can't change back. But what is low side override? It's the opposite of high side override, and it's 20%. And how did you get 20%?
Came from step 4, wherein 500 were manually removed from auto rejects. The remaining auto rejects were 2,000. So 500 divided by 2,500.
And this is where you get your 2,500 from. That is the model
Yeah.
rejects. Yeah. Samir, this is what we need and not 2,100. Yeah.
Okay, sir.
And this is 20% low side override rate. Good. All right. So that, having said that, the last group now, what is override rate?
So, sir, the override. Yeah, Kavita, go ahead.
500 plus 300 by 3000 plus 2500.
And therefore that is
It came 14%.
14. You did not take one decimal.
So it's 800 by 5500.
Is equal to
0.14.
Is it 14% or 14.5%?
14.5.
14.5.
Yes, it's 14.5%. And override rate, therefore, is what is in the numerator is all the rejects and accepted that you did manually, which is this, and this. So that's 800. And it gets divided by this 3000 plus 2500, and that is 5500, which equals to 14.5%. Okay, clear about this, guys? Any questions, anybody? Good.
Sir, I didn't quite understand the concept itself. Could you please explain it once more for me?
The concept is straightforward. Now, just the concept is very straightforward. Now, is this clear? Because once I get out of this, I will not be able to, you will not be able to see these colorful marks. Yeah. So this is what we were talking about. How do we know whether a model is doing good or not? And we've calculated all this. So we got all of this. We got 56% approval rates. We got rejection rates. We got overriding rates. Now, what does overriding rate mean? Overriding rate means whatever the model has done, humans have interjected and have reversed whatever model has taken as a decision, of which high side was 10% and low side was 20%. What does high side mean? High side means when the model has approved something, we have overwritten that decision. Low side means what the model has rejected, we as humans have overridden that decision. Okay, so that's what it means. Now, when you look at this model based on this, what can you say about the analysis and the interpretation of this metrics? If you were senior management looking at it, what interpretations can we make out of this matrix, or what
What are these abbreviations K, A, L, and G and all these things, sir?
This is here. This is from here.
Okay.
Yes. So we have said this G, for example, is auto accepts from manual removals. That's 300. And that's what we did. G plus I is manual remove from auto accepts, which is 300 plus 500 divided by 5500. That's what these calculations are. Okay. And those are the values. Now, when you see the values, what can you interpret from here? Is the model good, great, bad? What is it?
It is good, but not great.
Yeah.
Why is it good?
Because the override rate is around.
I'm so glad you're explaining. Otherwise, you say it's not good because it is not great. Okay. Why is it not great? Don't say because it is not good.
I feel that for a good, I think system, override rate should be minimal.
It's around 15%.
Yeah, minimal means what? 1%?
Probably, I'm not sure, but it should be minimal because there should be intervention.
So isn't this minimal? What has come is very minimal. 10% and 20% is minimal.
So, but scope of doing better is still there.
Oh, that how sadist are we? It's doing great. Why do we want it the best?
Also, the rejection rate is 44%, which is quite high.
Yeah, but approval rate is 56%. So why is that bad? If approval rate was 44%, then yes, we agree that it's a problem. Now, do you think approval rates should be majority or rejection rates should be majority? The model approval rate should be majority or model rejection rate should be majority?
Approval rate.
Approval rate should be majority. So ideally, anything above 51% is good. Higher, the better. In our case, approval rates are average. Good rates with benchmarks are above 65 to 70%. But it's still above majority. So it's not a bad model. So what I think Snehal said, it's good, but not great, is absolutely correct. But for this logic. Okay. What about override rates? High side override rate, do you think that's good?
No, I think
No.
higher side should be lesser.
9%? Lesser means what? Single digit?
Yeah, single digit.
Okay, why? Because that's the flavor of the day.
Sir, a lower override value means that there's less human intervention needed. That means the model is working correctly. So the lesser the value, the better the model.
Okay.
What is the industry benchmark for this? But it can still be reduced from 10% or 20% to a lower value.
Okay. So 10% is not bad actually, guys. It's a very good score. Of course, lesser the better, but not above 10%. So we're just at that threshold of acceptance, and therefore a high side overrate rate is good. Yeah. Low, so 10% is good. Anything lesser than 10% is obviously fantastic. We are at that threshold of being considered as a good score.
So
What
which
about
metric is more critical, high side override or low side override?
no, just no, yeah.
Low
Tell me.
side override can be a cause of issues
good?
like kind of fraud or something.
Is it bad or good?
No. Low side override is 20%. What does that mean?
Is
Good
it
or a
bad
bad
or
score?
good?
No, hold on. We are coming to it first. Let's build up the the environment. Then we'll answer that question. So low side is 20%. High side is good. What about low side?
It is bad actually, because applications are getting accepted. So
thank you. And therefore
there are risk involved, right?
Yes.
Fraud or something.
That means yes. So therefore, the low side overrate. Good. Well said, Raj. Low side overrate is therefore more prone to risks because the rate is very high. It's 20%. Ideally, about 10% is what we are accepting. This is just very, very high. That means the model is not very robust to be able to spot these. There is room for fraud because of human intervention more than expected. Yeah. So the things that you got to work on is override rate is nothing else but an average of these two. So, you'd rather not look at the override rates to make a decision. You look at high side and low side. And this, therefore, the task on action is to reduce low side override and increase approval rates. And how would you do that? You'd go do that, go back and see if your variables that you're used in the model are reliable and valid for you to be able to answer this question. Clear?
So which one is more critical for the bank? But I think it's high
All
side.
all five are required to review, but that is the interpretation you do. So approval rates, okay, average, I would say. High side override rates, great, wonderful rates as 10%, but low side override rates are bad, very, very bad. And that is kind of dropping the model dependency that you would like to do, because this model is therefore susceptible more to fraud. Because what's happening, model is rejecting and you are approving. And so therefore there is more room for maneuvering from the human element, which therefore is not the right thing to do. Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Everybody. Shirley, My
Yeah.
iPhone 13, are you clear now?
Yes, so clear.
Yeah, clear. Now you know the utility of this. So if this is the dashboard that comes to the risk management committee, that is the kind of discussion and inference that they need to make. Okay. Good. So those are my risk analytics, whether my model is good, bad, acquisition is happening right or not. And that's what I'm going to take or, put on board or, discuss it rather. Okay, one more question. Do you think machines will replace human beings? We kind of talked about this in our earlier class, but let's talk about it a little bit more. Will machines replace the, what should I say, humans?
As you already mentioned, I think human intervention is going to be there, no matter how much you
Yes,
automate things.
correct.
There has to be some monetary techniques that has to be in place for which you need
Correct.
humans.
Correct. So therefore, the answer is no, they will never replace humans. Correct. You all agree, right?
No.
What does that big no mean?
No. That no is not from me, sir.
No. From whom was that no? Was it to me or for your neighbors? Okay. So everybody agrees. Yes, Braj agrees. So you agree with me, basically. Shirley agrees with me. Everybody does?
Yes, sir.
Not entirely
Yes,
though.
sir.
Okay, so Vikas, let's hear you. What do you mean by not entirely? We're not saying 100%.
So are you setting some kind of a threshold that says, okay, 80% chances? No. 80% of roles get replaced by machines.
Not roles. I will not say replaced. Get get enhanced, get complemented by machines.
Okay, so that's the reason why we had machine learning in the first place and usage of robotics or whatever. But
Yeah, but alone machine learning will not do good, right? With machine learning, you must have the business acumen. And if for that business acumen, then you need the business interpretation. And for the business interpretation, you need business action.
no, I do have a case where I see that we can actually replace 100% of jobs. It would depend on the industry. It would depend on a subset. Again, I mean, I don't know if this is the right forum to discuss.
No, it's okay. I'm not going to ask you probe further. Which industry were you referring to, by the way, for that?
So let's just say we have so any application, for example.
Real, sorry, Vikas, a real example or fictitious one?
No, real example.
Okay, then please go ahead.
Yeah, so it goes through two major life cycles of development, right? So one is the innovation or integration development cycle, and then the maintenance cycle. If you're sure of what are the business scenarios that you would come across, if there's very little wriggling room, the use cases are absolutely fixed. There's only certain set of workflows that are allowed. Then for sure, I don't see where we would actually need human intervention if at all we apply ML. Typically in the service support industry, and again, very specific use cases.
Correct. And in that process, completely agree, Vikas. A lot of assumptions have been made in your statement. First, the understanding of business exists. The variables that you've done have gone through a reliability accuracy check. The decisions are robust and taken, and therefore the reliance on your framework is very high. So therefore, the entire, agony of an analyst to be able to, do the routine, mundane, manual work gets reduced.
That's right.
Yeah, you now need those brains not to run the process, but you now need those brains to interpret the action.
Yeah, I guess it's only one time, right? So once it's done and applied, and again, I would apply these machine learning techniques only when I know, only for these specific use cases. Again, not where I've got variables or unknowns.
Correct. But in the case of fraud, what do you think?
Yeah. So again, it depends on applicability. I was not talking of fraud.
Yeah. So in the case of fraud, this can work for an annual period. You should be happy. But after that, the environment changes so dynamically that you have to look at your variables.
Yeah, fair enough. Of course, that's
or any regulatory interjection. You got to look at it even before that.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Professor. Sorry, I took some time.
No worries. No. It's a view. Perfect. So let's move on. But so therefore, this fear that machines are going to take away our jobs is not true. Personally, I feel it's only going to complement our thinking, action, and decision-making processes as we embrace data-driven decision-making and as we embrace big data for us to be able to take or make those decisions, structured and unstructured, put together.
So
Okay.
can we please take a break?
Yes. I was about to say that. I could see, through that. And yes. So should we take a quick 10 minutes and come back?
Yes.
Yeah. And guys, before we leave, I want us to keep our cameras on. So I want to know the names and faces together before we sign off for the day today. Yeah. So we come back and we will continue with our discussion on risk. And as promised, I will talk to you about the exam, the pattern and how, what is expected of you. How should you answer the questions? Okay. So see you in 10.
Okay, sir.
All right, class, we back. So we basically looked at the model indicators to decide and determine if we need to do anything about uh, the model, the variables to build the accuracy of the model, or do we need to change anything? There are some, so therefore, with that, you also know whether the model is stable, has the discriminatory power or not. There are some short-term model indicators as well, and that is the reaction rate in terms of picking up the red alerts or any anomalies. And I think this normally comes through if the model is able to, spot any, what is the word for outliers, and this outliers will help you determine or do a deep dive analysis towards your data. Swap sets like the credit loss, good customers and bad customers, late payments and the behavior towards late payments, and credit cards overutilization of the limits. This was for the long-term stability, calibration, and discriminatory power is a long-term indicator. Now, there's some interesting variable or interesting analysis that you can carry out, and that is log odds. Now, log odds is the ratio between good to bad customers, and the number is the same, the interpretation differs. So in case you have 100 customers and 90 are good, that means they are picture perfect, they don't default, they're the customers you'd want to get, and 10 are bad customers. That means they are problematic, they are defaulting. In that case, your ratio of good to bad customers will be 9. Yeah. Now, good to bad or bad to good, the number will still be 9, but it's good, but the way you read it is 9 as good customers as opposed to 9 as bad customers. Okay, and this is going to help you, understand the discriminatory power of the model and to be able to take action. If your good to bad customer ratio is less than 80, it's a cause of concern usually. Yeah. So the stability of the model. Yes, Kavita.
So in the async, they have mentioned like for bigger banks, probably precision is having a higher precision for the model is more important for a local bank versus a international bank, which would be more interested in having a better recall. So
Okay. I will just address that. Let's move a little bit on and then we'll talk about this, yeah, because there is some factors still coming in to talk about it. So just live with that discomfort for 5 more minutes and then we'll address it.
Sure, sir.
Okay, so stability of the model is dependent on variable distribution, population proportion, and predictive patterns. Now, what do we mean by variable distribution? Which means you should be able to, if you exclude or include any variable, you should be able to predict your model very well. And if you're able to predict your model very well, you should be able to extrapolate. In this sense, you should be able to extrapolate the portfolio level analysis to the customer level. And that's your variable distribution come population proportion. So no matter whether you add or subtract variables, you should be able to get valid answers. Valid means answering the objective. Reliable answers means there is no assumption on the variables you used in. They are accurate data that you have used. Population proportion means extrapolation of whatever sample you've looked at or whatever analysis that you've done to the entire portfolio, to the entire customer data that you have done. So sample should be representative of the population. This only happens when you are talking about accuracy of the data, or rather the precision of the variables that you've used in. So reliability and validity important here as well. And predictive patterns, it should be stable enough. Your models cannot change and it should be able to perform what it should be. So all the three of them, in my opinion, is based on data reliability and data validity, which means the model is able to address the objective using the reliable data. We saw this video in the earlier one, so not doing it again. So I'm not going to do this as breakout rooms, let's do this as a class. Just read this quickly and tell me which of these terms is well suited for it for model validation. Is it A, B, C, or D?
C.
C, okay. D, C. So, Vikas, why is it D?
So I think the context in the question is about the stability of the model and not really about the variables.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, and again, D does not really say that they need to be strictly the same. It just says it's identical, and identical meaning both of them are synonymous considering their own set of variables. So I think
If they are identical, then why do we need S1 and S2?
no. So despite having different kinds of variables, the models are still able to generate similar kind of predictions. So across different variables, they are still being stable.
Yeah, but a model M1 is S1 variables and M2 is S2 variables. So are they still identical?
So stability implies it is able to give same results consistently for 2-3 years, right? So
correct.
basically the same model should be able to provide us the results.
So therefore
D should be the answer.
Okay. Anybody saying something else, or there was somebody who said C, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Why?
So for the two models M1 and M2, the variables, although are different, the outcome should be same. So the set of variable S1 and S2, in which two different set of variables are used for two different model M1 and M2, both should, in the end, the result should be similar.
Okay. And that similarity is what? Predicting whether there's a fraud or no fraud, right?
Yes.
Okay. And extrapolating the data to the to whatever set that you've picked up these variables from. Right.
Yeah.
So population proportion, predictive patterns, and obviously the variable distributions that you've done. So I would go with C as well. It is slightly different, but the difference is not very high because both, though being different, are doing the job right of able to predict what you're wanting to predict from that point of view. Okay, you can say M1 and M2 are identical, but on the same grounds. And between the two, I think C says it better than D personally. S1 and S2 are not identical. S1 is quite different from S2. First two statements don't apply. So if your D logic is going to be the same, I will still grant you that that mark based on predictive patterns, population proportions, and variable distributions as indicators of stability. Yeah. So yes, first D, but if you explain D right, I will still grant it to you if you link it there. Good. Let's talk about this one, slightly tricky. but what would you say this would be? A, B, C, or D? Which of the following areas are you most concerned about? From model perspective, is it variable, proportion, predictive?
A.
Yes.
I would say it is D.
D, okay. Now, okay, stability of the predictive pattern. So are we saying only this is important as stability? Because the moment we say stability, ideally we should be concerned of all three: predictive patterns, population proportions, and variables that we've used in. Would we be most concerned about this? I personally would not want it, because if you are only able to, I think it's an interlock or interrelated. If you don't have any of the three, in my opinion, stability is not going to be achieved. So in the importance of each one of them, in my opinion, would be 33% as opposed to 1 to something and low to something. And that's where the concept of precision, discriminatory power, data validity, data reliability comes into picture. So, personally, whatever size of bank it is, local, international, small, large, big, they must have the stability of the model from these three perspectives. Okay. So to be able to answer that, it would be, would A fit in well or D fit in well? Because what does A say? A says only about population proportion. D says only about predictive patterns. So in that case, both A and D will be ruled out. Which one would you talk more now? If you
B.
Sorry?
Then B.
Then B, yes. Then B. The discriminatory power of the model is what I will go with, because I am assuming if the model has the power to distinguish between fraudulent and not fraudulent, it is based on accurate. Without accuracy, you cannot achieve discriminatory power, and therefore I would go with B. Yeah, so this one is slightly tricky. Again, in some forums, they say that it's a perspective. It's okay as long as that perspective is rationalized by your thinking. But personally, I would give equal weightage to the stability components of a model. All right, good. So, existing customer management, what does the term delinquency mean? Delinquency means if a customer is supposed to pay their bills today, and they don't make that payment today, but they make it tomorrow, then obviously it's going to be a problem. And therefore, it is called as a delinquent customer, expected to be on the first, paid on the second. Okay. Now, more days passed, more of a problem. Less days passed, less of a problem. And we measure this by saying days past due analysis. So if you're supposed to pay on the 15th, and if you don't pay till the 16th, it's obviously one day past due, but less action will be taken. And in the banking terminology, they call it as bucket-wise analysis. So, bucket A, B, C, D, E. And if you are in bucket list C, which means that that portfolio of customers is vulnerable. In the past, they used to, send it for collections and recovery only after 180 days or even after, 120 days. But today, they have lowered it down, and it is, within a month, it is a cause of a concern. So I think bucket list A is within 15 days. But that yardstick has changed, post the last recession of, to 2008, 2018, and that's become much more stringent now. So 15 days, uh, 15 days to a month, 1 month to 2 months, 2 months to about 3 months, and then it is, going into collections and recovery after a 3-month period only. And that's a close warning. There are enough reminders and emails come to you if you're delaying a particular installment within the first 15 days, and they keep on increasing with regards to adding on with a phone call, or there's an agent talking to you, and they then send it to the collections recovery team later on. So that's how you calculate a healthy or an unhealthy portfolio, bucket it up by doing the days past due analysis. Okay. So 2 additional analytics is what you do, the roll rate matrix and the vintage curve. So the roll rate matrix is nothing else, but you plot the months next to each other to see whether, or even into days nowadays, whether the 15 days has pushed on or moved into 30 days or into 45 days or into 60 days or into 90 days or into 120 days. And immediately after 90 days, it is passed on for collections and recovery. Vintage curve basically looks at the portfolio. All these are portfolio level analysis that you will do. And you are going to look at the time period where the curves are moving, period to period, quarter to quarter, to be able to see, is it okay? Is it, a problem? Do you need to intervene? Is the portfolio looking healthy or not? And it helps. But trust me, banks rely more on DPD or on the delinquency analysis, like on a far more frequent basis than you would do a vintage analysis. Okay. They will pass it on to collections and recovery only as a last resort, and not because it has a cost. This function is usually outsourced to a third party, and with outsourcing, there are bills that require to be given or invoices that require to be honored. So, during the recessionary times, financial crisis times of 2018 and 2008 and stuff, the maximum hiring that banks have done at that point of time is in the collections and recovery fields. The sales teams also had to do collections and recovery functions, and a large army was built in. They realized it was too much in-house infrastructures, and that got outsourced to specialized agents, including countries which had a lot of defaults for them. So you have a delinquent customer, and you have an early delinquent customer, secure products customer, and a late delinquent customer. So what do we mean by an early delinquent customer? An early delinquent customer who self-cures or does not self-cure. So what do we mean by self-cure? Self-cure means by chance that you have probably missed paying your installment, either credit card or loans, by a day or two. It has been an abnormal effect, and you've kind of cured it on your own. You've gone and paid it, and you're back on track. Non-self-cures is you have not paid it for 1 month, and the next month, therefore, we're not sure if you're going to pay, because that is an outlier, but that is an anomaly, and I will investigate it whether you've done it or not. Secured products is repossession. Secured products is the most safest, because if they don't pay, you will liquidate the asset and you will get your monies due, and that is therefore loan against security. Late delinquency is a function of soft coercion, which is you will predict whether you're how bad is this portfolio, and that is your bucket wise analysis that you carry out. You will also analyze loans that you need to write off or you need to settle in, and those kinds of things usually are not a good practice, but you have to do that as well. So a variety of factors that determine collection analysis. You have many models that are available to you to be able to pick these numbers up, and many sources of data. If the occurrence rate is high, you need to know that it needs to be marked as risk and therefore marked for collections and recovery. Action effect, sometimes you have early settlement, full and final settlement, and whatever balances have not been paid, that balance is obviously at risk. So just to summarize what we spoke about of the risk models to minimize losses, and we said at the acquisition stage, our key objective is to onboard a good portfolio of customer or a good customer. The management of this in terms of the life cycle, which is customer management, to track the behavior, to mitigate, to minimize, and therefore to prevent losses or frauds and risks, therefore, from a risk-averse portfolio. Collections and recovery, you take the right action to determine the defaulter so that you should be able to achieve the action, minimize your credit losses, and then make sure that your portfolio is healthy. So 3 stages of your customer life cycle with the objectives at each stage. Factor specific at the acquisition stage, the time period of usage of the data there would be about 3 to 5 years, and then things will not change as much as it would probably change at the management stage because the behavior changes. And collections data and recovery is about 2 to 6 weeks. This is what we did in terms of the analysis method, reject inferences, roll rate matrix, and obviously the action effect is very important for collections and recovery. Just again, summarization of what we did. Short-term evaluation of the model and long-term evaluation. Long-term is a function of discriminatory power, accuracy, and stability. Important, I would say, across the 3 stages. At the short-term evaluation, largely seen not at collections and recovery, but mainly seen at the customer lifecycle or customer management phase. Okay, so that's pretty much what we wanted to talk about as far as your fraud and risk class or course is concerned. Any questions before we move on? I don't know who had raised that question, but have I addressed it? Yeah, any questions before we talk about the exam?
So this is our last session.
Yes, this is our last session. And Shirley, you changed from Shirley to iPhone 13 because this is our last session.
Change it to iPhone 13.
Yeah, because it is our last session.
You're more comfortable with that than my name looks like.
Okay. No, that has been so embedded last post, no, that it's actually been hammered in now, iPhone 13. Okay. Yes, this is our last session.
So could you please throw some light on the project and the term end exam?
Yes, term and exam also. Project is due tomorrow. And good luck on the project. Anything else you want to know?
You want to first know about the project and then about the exam term.
Yeah, I just said on the project, it's due tomorrow. And good luck with your project.
Is that it?
Yeah, what else do you want to know?
If you can have a brief discussion on that.
Okay, I'm just going to go open it as we speak. Just trying to find in as to the link so I can take you through it. It's a very simple, straightforward project this time. Yeah, I think I'll find it. I just want to open the link in I'm just getting the link. I don't know, somehow it's not. As I open this, I'm going to talk about the term end exam first, and then as this is opening, then we'll talk about the project. So on the term end exam, you have paper one. I mean, I think you'll appear in whichever. When is the exam? Next week, right?
No, sir. End of the month. End of the month.
Okay, so you have lots of time then. But guys, I don't think if you've attended the classes and if you've understood everything, then honestly speaking, the exam is a cakewalk. Because whatever we've done in the class and discussed it, and you should find it, you should find it relating to the concepts and discussions that we've had in class. Now, if you get this paper that you get, so you have three questions in this one, 20, 10, 20, 20, 20, and that's how the mark split is. It weighs about 30%, so they'll change it at their end. So it's about 10 marks each again. So the first question is by itself, and this is a calculation question, and it is connected with risk. So there's some data given to you, and you're expected to calculate something. You are also asked to use your own assumptions. Now, when you calculate something, just don't leave any calculations as it is. Kindly interpret what you want to talk about from the actions that you're giving from it. Having studied, having talked about it, do not just leave the calculation dump and say, I've done it. I just want you to summarize it in a line or two about what is the calculations that you've done here. Okay, so that should be good. Question two has two parts to the story. One of the parts talks about both these are, you have to express your views. And in 2A, it is talking about, again, what kind of risk is evident in a certain scenario given to you. And in the other, now, when you say what kind of risk is evident, don't just write the risk. Say there are different types of risks. And of these, this is visible and this is not visible, and kind of end it. Okay. And if you say what type of risk, and if you've not given that spiel, you might lose out a mark or so. Kindly don't get into that trap. The second part is there's a statement given to you and you're asked your opinion on it. And then when you say your opinion, don't just say agree or disagree. Rationalize it with why you think what you think. Okay, so that's about 10 marks each or 5 marks each as they would give it to you. The third question is a little data set given to you and you're expected to do some descriptive analytics on it. This is Excel based, so they will give you access to Excel. So kindly use it, calculate it. And when you calculate it, don't just leave it like that. Please summarize the answer saying, okay, these are the cases that you will investigate for fraud, number one. And number two, what are the merits of doing this analysis firstly? So those 2 points definitely try and answer in your summarization of this thing that we talked about, which is paper number one. Okay.
So when you say the numerical question, is it the similar kinds that we've discussed in the class, or?
Yes. Everything what we've discussed in class would be the kind of numerical questions you'll get on the exam.
Okay.
Okay. So that would be your paper. I mean, the first time that you give your exam. Should you wish to give your exam the second time, what do you have to do? You have to do something. The pattern for paper two, in case you're giving paper two, there are 3 full questions. In the first case, you're again given some data and you're expected to do some calculations. And again, you have to use your assumptions in that particular case. In question two, some credit card data is given to you, and that's Excel based, and you have to again calculate and then help answer the objective that is given in the question. And question 3, there's a statement given to you, and you are expected to, give your perspective to that statement. Okay, so 3 questions, no A/B parts to it. The second question is Excel enabled, and you should be able to upload your Excel file here. Okay. So when you are writing, there is word count, but kindly, be succinct, bold what you want to, bulletize what you want to, put point format you want to, and just make your answers quick, crisper, and to the point rather than beating around bush and not writing the points that you wanted to write here. You are which, what is your batch number? Your specialization in business analytics?
Yes, sir. C9.
Yeah, and when did you join?
September 21 last year, sir.
September 21 you joined. Okay, great.
C9, sir, batch number.
Batch number C. Again, why is it something went wrong, it says? It's come. Course 9, right?
Yes, sir.
And we follow the, sir, batch 9.
Yeah,
C9.
it's not course 9 because course 9 says something else. Term 3 this is?
No, sir, term 5.
Term 5.
Ah, got it. Fraud and risk analytics. That sounds familiar. iPhone 13, you've read the project or no?
No, so I'm yet to see it.
And when do you plan to see it?
After this class, maybe.
Okay, you have to, don't you?
But the thing is, see, again, upgrad is making it inconvenient for us by scheduling a class tomorrow in the evening, where we'll all be like, on the project, trying to complete it. In the end,
Oh, you have a class tomorrow. Okay.
Class tomorrow in the evening. That's shocking and surprising.
Wow.
We do have. I'm not sure.
Yeah. New
Okay,
subject. It
and
was
what is
supposed
that?
to be on tomorrow morning, but they have shifted it to evening.
Because you have an overdose.
A lot of shifting is there, yeah. Like we have to escalate this to upgrade now.
This is really causing a lot of stress for us. I mean, as it is, it's quite stressful.
Okay.
Anyways, we can talk this offline.
So for Excel based question, we have to answer inside the Excel itself and upload.
Yes. Please do that. Good question. Don't write anything in metal. If it's an Excel uploaded question, the facility is given to you. You have to use it. If you don't and just write, this is what I'll do, that is what I'll do, you will not get the full marks that you will get. I might give you based on what you've written. That's just going to be very, very suboptimal. So don't do that. Yeah.
So,
okay,
kindly be liberal in your marking, because this is our.
Because the probability and severity of you scoring an A is very high. Okay. Yeah, but guys, I know you guys now, and I don't think it's going to be difficult for you guys to attempt the exam based on the discussions and class participation that we've had. And, so I don't think that's going to be an issue. So don't worry.
Thank you, sir.
So this is the mega project that you got to work on. How many of you have started? You can raise your hands.
I've started already.
Started. And Raj, you finished it?
Almost, but I have not finalized it on the WordPad that we've got. But
okay, but you've done it. Good. Snehal, you also done it? Good.
I started it, not completed.
Started means opened, admired, and kept, or what?
No. Started with like first two questions.
First two questions. Okay.
Mine third,
right.
Third and fourth is left.
Okay. Okay, so that is easy. Insights and recommendations.
Yeah.
So that the analysis part is done. Now you have to sit and have your cup of coffee or lunch or whatever and decide what should I write. Okay, good. That's so, Shirley, especially for you, and then the rest of the class also. This is your project. This is exploratory data analysis that you got to do. It is all Excel based. If you're a Python specialist, I just would like to salute you, but you can do this in Excel as well. So this is four broad criteria to the project, and that's for 40 marks. So the first part is 18 marks, analysis of predictor variables. You have to, basically analyze some data, and we'll look at that data. In the first two cases, you got to provide correct inferences based on that data, and then you got to analyze you got to suggest rather which is the better model that you would like to go ahead with. So this is the submission template. Kindly, use this and nothing else, because it becomes easier for you to put your things through it. And I'm not going to open it. It's pretty straightforward, so you can look at it. Yeah. So this is when Rats said he's not put it in the submission template. This is what he meant. He's got it all around him, but he needs to put it here. Am I correct?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Okay, good. So this is a fictitious example, obviously. Urban Credit International is a leading credit card company based in the US. They found that they were facing defaults of their credit card customers, and it could be many reasons. That's what we want to find out. So it's a case and point of detection and therefore prevention of fraud. As a protective measure, they want to look at different factors that can help them to obviously, understand this pattern and put their perspectives in place in terms of which customer would not pay the bill next month, and they may not reach out to them, or they may reach out to them if they find that they need to be working with this customer set. As a risk analyst, you are employed for them, and you need to give the recommendations and insights based on the data of the customers who hold credit card with UCI. This also includes whether the customer failed paying the EMI or not. It's a huge data set, guys, and a lot of records, a lot of fields which you will use from here. Yeah. And then the last part is your first question. It tells you what you need to do. So there are, I think, 6 parts to this question. You need to find the percent of default and non-default discriminatory power of a model, which you should be able to easily do that. I don't think that's a big problem. So are they defaulting or non-defaulting? And then you plot this visually on a bar plot. Find the percentage of defaulters with respect to SEX, and you can plot the, basically gender and basically male and female, and you'll plot this as well. So you will analyze this through demographic variables, gender, sex, education, age, marriage, marital status, and you'll take all of this to be able to do so. And you'll do one more analysis with repayment status in September 2005. So easily pivots will help you do that. I don't think you need any other Excel advanced functions to be able to do so. Those who've done this, have you done this on Excel and pivots or Python?
Professor, I use Python.
Python.
Okay, hats off to you, then lucky. Okay, but wonderful. But yeah, if you're doing Excel, then you can do it on pivots as well.
So
Question 2. Yes.
Question on the data, there are values provided which are not mentioned in the metadata. For example, for the
education
repayment status, there is values provided in the metadata. They have mentioned like the dictionary only tells about certain values from -1 onwards, whereas in the actual Excel data we have additional values like -2. So are we supposed to do any kind of conversion or cleanup before proceeding with that?
You can combine it as well. You can group them as well. Yeah, that will be easier to do so.
So probably -2, we should group it with 0.
No, keep the minuses separate. -1, -2 as one group, and then 0. Yeah.
So even for 0, they have not provided what is the description. It's like -1 and then 1.
Yeah. So you can assume so in that case. This is how I've assumed, and you can provide your details in terms of the number, because there's only one question. So it's okay. Use your assumptions.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. But put the negatives together, 0 by itself, and then look at your positives, which is obviously provided. Okay, here, now you filter the data for good customers. So when you filter, you say pay 0, pay 2, pay 3, pay 4, pay 5 is equal to -1. There it is. And then answer the below questions. And therefore, you put these answers for good customers. So again, same demographics as well. And once you do that, then you are going to be able to, put your inferences based on the analysis, add recommendations and suggestions that you would like to, which is a vulnerable segment, which is not, and you'll talk about it. Lastly, you have the different models. So therefore, you're going to provide which model, 1, 2, is something that you want to rely on as far as fraud detection and measurement is concerned. And what is the rationale is more important than just saying 1 or 2. Because on the confusion matrix, you need to say whether you're suggesting 1 or 2. And this is the reason why I'm suggesting a model over the other model. Okay. That's it. And that's your timeline. So in your case, 10:29. So in Cinderella for you will strike a little early than usual at 10:30 in 10:29 India time. Zip it up with your Excel workbook. Guys, please submit in Excel. I have a lot of difficulty with Jupyter. Not where, I also need to grade and correct it much faster than you think. So Excel workbooks will be fantastic because it will be quicker for me. That's it. You upload it here and you're ready to go.
So, sir, in the second question where we have to filter for the good customers, so in that also, do you suggest to combine -1 and -2?
Yes. Or you can, if you want, based on your counts, you can keep them separate as well. I would leave it up to you how you want us to present, how you'd want to show the reference. But yeah, show them as, it says pay 0, 2, 3, 4, 5 equals to -1.
Yeah, so what I wanted to ask was, should we filter it for both -1 and -2 or just -1?
No, just -1 is good enough.
Okay.
Yeah. Because they're asking you to do that, so don't change it.
So also the question that Kavita asked, actually, I had a little confusion there. You asked us to assume, but like there's a link that's given in the previous page of this module where you had the data set. So the last line of that, there's a link provided, like where it says provided here.
Yeah, this one. Okay.
Yeah. So that's what gives the metadata that
The
Kavita was
dictionary.
referring to.
The dictionary. Yeah.
Yes. So in this case, if you see, so I'm unable to interpret as to what -1 is and 0 is then, because if you go like scroll down towards the end of the page, it
I'm
says,
just doing that. Yeah.
yeah, if you see this one marked with an asterisk, the line written just below the table.
Yeah, but that is for which question? That is for, yeah, I think it is for all these. History of past payment. The payment status is September 2005. This is August 2005. Yes. This is July. So this is month after month. And that is what is giving you your pay 0, pay 2, pay 3, pay 4, pay 5, pay 6.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what it's saying here. The measurement scale for the repayment status is 1, pay duly, blah, blah, all of that.
Oh, yes, sir. So in this, they haven't mentioned 0 and -2, which is there in our data set. So just wanted to understand how we're supposed to interpret -2.
Okay, so then your pay fields have been identified, right?
No, so if you check the dictionary, the key there, you
No,
see
but then, yeah.
-1. After that, you have 1. Like there's no 0 in between there. So how do you interpret the 0 there?
No, they have 0, +1, and -1 here.
Yeah, but in the key, if you see like the line you were just reading at the end of the table, there they have not mentioned it.
Okay, but go with this. No, they're putting it as an example. I says you can go with this.
Yes,
so what she's saying is -2, what it indicates, what does that value indicate that's not been provided? Like for -1, it means paid duly, and for 1, it means 1 month late, but for -2,
okay.
we interpret it as.
Yeah, -2 is
Yeah,
not
so for
provided.
0 and
Yeah.
0 and -2, it's not.
Correct. Because your pays duly is -1. Yeah, I'm not sure. You can put your assumptions in, guys. I don't want to change the scale now. Yeah. Yeah, but I get your point there.
I'll make a point. I assume, Professor.
Go ahead.
I assume that -2 is paid 1 month before. Let's say some refund was there in the credit card because some transaction you made and that was minus, right? And that was already there in your.
But Braj, yeah, you can do that, not a problem. But paid duly, I would put it as, I mean, look at that. They're saying -1 is paid duly, which means it is actually acceptable, right?
Based on that data only, I assume that paid duly is like whatever amount that you are paying, that was your account statement, like whatever
Correct.
statement generated
Correct.
that you paid was paid duly is -1.
Correct.
What I assume is that, let's say you made some transaction, let's say I purchased an iPhone 13, right? And that was created debited from my credit card, but it was not actually paid, right? So that coming back, right? So that can be -2 and 0 can be a payment that is defaulted. I assume it like that way.
Okay, but look at this, payment delay for 1 month, 2 months, blah, blah, blah. It's going up to 9 months.
Yeah.
So there is no room actually for a 0 there in that sense. Honestly speaking, on the scaling, or 0 can be payment delay of 15 days.
No, actually, Professor, it's saying that there can be a default of the payment, right? Which is not mentioned.
Yeah. Which is not mentioned, correct.
That's why I assume 0 as a in the payment.
Okay, fair enough. So therefore, you made this binary, default or non-default.
Yeah, I made that way.
Fair enough. But please put your assumptions also there, huh?
Yeah, Professor.
Okay. Okay. All others okay? Kavita, good?
Yeah, so.
All right. So any other questions, guys? So both exam and this was done. And I don't think on the exam front, you would have any problems or any issues. And I honestly, on the project front, I find it very straightforward for the kind of analysis you do. I'm really wanting to see what is the rationale for interpretation. So good. If there are no other questions, good, guys.
I had one question on that async content where they have mentioned that for a local bank, precision is more important, whereas for an international bank, recall would be more important. I didn't understand what.
I wouldn't go with that, Kavita. Yeah, everybody has their opinion or difference. I have not looked at that from that perspective, but I would not differentiate recall versus precision for a local or an MNC bank, because fraud is caught by both, and models have to represent something on a very stable and a uniform manner, because the agent or the consultant for fraud does not differ his or her consultancy services based on it. So I would assume stability of the model, which is a function of precision, and precision is defined as data reliability and data validity.
Sure, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So take care, guys. Good luck, and we'll keep in touch. And yeah, I hope everything goes good with you guys at school, and school as in at college, as well as on your professional front. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And please fill the feedback form. It's up there, so kindly fill it, guys.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, sir. Sir, can you share your email ID or contact? If something is required, then we can connect.
You can connect with me on LinkedIn, Sameer. And if there's anything, let me know. Then we can probably do a Zoom call, or I'll share you my details. But I am on LinkedIn, so you can connect with me there. Yeah.
I just sent you a request there, Professor.
Oh, you just sent it? Okay.
Please share the feedback link.
That's there already.
No, I
Kajali.
actually got disconnected because of network issues and then I reconnected.
Let me just
So I lost it.
reboot that.
It's done. It's there.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Yeah. So Samir, you can connect, and then if there's anything we can touch base.
Right.
All right. Good luck. Bye bye. Take care.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.
Good
Thank you.
night.